you met yourself on the street, what would you think? Would you be friends with yourself? In this video, I'm going to talk about this book, Be the Person You Want to Find. It was recommended to me by a friend, and it completely changed the way that I talk to myself. Although it talks a lot about relationships, it's more about awareness, clarity, responsibility, and self-discovery. Hey everyone, if you're new to the channel, I'm Teddy. I'm an international teacher turned entrepreneur, and I've spent the last decade exploring the world. I've learned a lot about myself along this journey, and I'm constantly trying to learn more about myself every single day. That's what inspired this channel, and sometimes I make book reviews along the way that have to do with self-discovery. This book, although simply written and even using kid-like font, was surprisingly powerful. There were so many gems that I found myself constantly earmarking pages or taking pictures of passages that I wanted to reread or to send to friends. A nice surprise is that there are a lot of exercises, and so it's a very interactive book, and along the way, you can pause, write in a journal, and reflect on your own life. If any of this sounds interesting to you, or if you want to explore more about topics like this, hit that subscribe button and you can check out more videos like this. So how does this book teach you about awareness and being responsible for your own life? Well, what it does is that it teaches you about the experience of being human, and it gives you the tools to navigate that experience in a very conscious way. So what does that look like? Let's get into it. I'm going to break down this human experience into an easy to understand sequence. So we're going to travel back a little bit in time, and we're going to start with conditioning. Conditioning occurs when we're young and we're absorbing everything. Imagine yourself like a sponge. We are primarily conditioned by things like family, school, religion, and that all shapes us completely into the people that we are today. What's really crazy is that we don't choose any of these things. They are chosen for us and they shape us into who we are. One thing that's mentioned in the book is that we are not really aware of our conditioning and how it shaped us. It's not until we try to practice being aware or be intentional about examining our conditioning that we understand why we are the way we are. Next up in the sequence is our belief system. So the author, Sherry Huber, goes on to talk about how this is when we start to develop our beliefs about things, and these are all related to how we were conditioned. Most of us are unaware that these systems are the foundation of our life and they're responsible for who we are, our decisions, relationships to others, and much, much more. An interesting question that popped into my head as I was reading this book is, how often do we question our own belief systems? Next up, we're starting to get a little bit older, our foundations are set, and then we enter the projection part of the sequence. What I found really fascinating about the author's viewpoint in this part of the book was that she stated that there's no objective reality, there's just our reality, and that's how we perceive the world. We see ourselves when we look out to the world and we interact with other people. Maybe you've heard the expression that relationships are mirrors. I wholeheartedly believe that, and I think that when you're interacting with other people, you see the best in other people, which is the best in yourself, and then you also see the worst in other people, which is actually the worst in yourself. Now you're seeing how this naturally unfolds. We're conditioned as young children, and then we began to form belief systems, which is the foundation of our decisions and who we are as people. And then we start to project those beliefs into the world, and they're a reflection of who we are. And then after that, we start to form identities. The author goes on to state that identities are like voices in our head. And what's crazy is that we can have multiple identities. All of the identities that we have serve to make up the use for the word I. I am this, I am that. All of these identities are part of our personalities, and we develop them at a very young age when we were trying to survive and learn how to navigate the world. So picture this. When you started to form and develop an identity, you learned how to respond in that identity. So then it becomes a conditioned response. If, for example, you are in a situation and you get angry, then you're going to have a conditioned response when you get angry. You don't think about the decision, it's automatic, and that's just how you respond because that's who you are. So our development as humans could just stop right there, and then we end up living the rest of our lives repeating the same patterns and conditioning and reinforcing the identities that are attached to ourselves. But this is where awareness comes in, and it is the first important step on the journey of self-discovery. The reason why it's so important is because when you become aware, you can then learn to disidentify. This is an important topic that comes up in the book by Sherry Huber, and disidentifying is the act of taking a step back from your identity and viewing it from a different perspective. She uses an amazing metaphor in the book that really helped me to understand what this action and this process is. And it was to imagine yourself being on a stage, walking off of the stage, sitting down in the audience and observing yourself. It's not until you can actually practice disidentifying and catching yourself in those moments where you're in those conditioned responses that you can actually challenge and examine your thought, emotion, condition, response. What does that mean? Well, think back to the example I just referenced. Let's say you get angry. Let's say you're in a situation, you're arguing with a friend, and your conditioned response is that you get angry and you start yelling. Well, if in that moment you practice awareness and you disidentify, you walk off the stage, you get into the audience and you observe the way you're acting, you observe this identity that you've assumed, then you can actively choose or understand that you don't have to get elevated and yell. There are other ways to respond. However, if you don't stop to question why you respond the way that you do, or question why you're attached to these identities, then you're going to continue to respond in the way that you learned as a kid when you were trying to survive and to navigate the world. And you'll do that over and over and over again. Great. I wanted to take that part from the book and highlight what does it mean to experience the world as a human. But what's the end goal here? The end goal is awareness. Awareness is important because it allows you to gain back a bit of control over your life rather than being conditioned and responding in the way that you've always responded and that you were taught. There's a way to deeply understand why you're responding in the way you're doing and then to respond to that. However, let's not get confused. The goal here is not to change or to become a completely different person. The goal here is awareness so that you can be present. Another concept that comes up in this book by Sherry Huber is the idea of being at center. To be at center is to be in a completely judgment-free zone. I want you to internalize this next point. Most of us will not change and we will not get rid of our conditioning. However, we can work on becoming more aware and we can adapt the process of what happens when we're challenged as people, when our identities are challenged. You are fine the way you are, but the primary relationship that we have in life is to ourselves. So what are you going to do to begin working on that? I would recommend this book to anyone in my life. It's very thought-provoking and it really gives you a nice way to reflect on your life and how you became the person that you are. I think we could all use a little bit of that, and there's only good things to come from that. If you're interested in other ways that you can improve your life, check out this video I made on how you can boost your confidence. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.